Hello, Peace Lutheran Church. I am excited that we are going to be launching some new initiatives this fall. And so I thought I'd make this video just to share some of those things that are upcoming, beginning on September 8th in 2024. And the biggest change that we're going to be doing is that we're going to be moving from the Revised Common Lectionary to the Narrative Lectionary. Now, first question you may have is, what is a lectionary? A lectionary is just a prescribed reading, set of readings like scripture in an order that we follow throughout the year. And we do that on Sunday mornings. When we open up the Bible, we don't usually just pick them, although sometimes we do a sermon series, but most of the time we're going through a prescribed set of readings that a whole bunch of churches are doing. And this goes back, almost to the very beginning of worshiping communities in which they would think through, what are we going to be reading this year, instead of just picking things randomly, so that you get a much more wider array of the story instead of the same thing, or the easy text week after week. Now, in more recent times, in the 1960s, and I'm not going to go into all the history, and then again in the 1990s, there was this thing called that was created called the Common Lectionary, and then later the Revised Common Lectionary, and so that a whole bunch of denominations were described to it. And so it didn't matter if you were going to a Lutheran Church or Presbyterian or Roman Catholic or Methodist or Episcopalian. Most of those would have sort of signed off on, these are the same texts that we're going to be studying together, on a certain Sunday in a 3-year cycle. And in those 3 years, you were meant to get the bulk of the Bible, and there would be a focus on year A on the Gospel of Matthew, year B would be the Gospel of Mark, year C would be the Gospel of Gospel of Luke, and then Gospel of John would be kind of interspersed in those. So we have been following sort of this pattern as long as peace has been around, the Revised Common Lectionary. In 2010, there was a movement out of Luther Seminary in Minneapolis that began to look at the larger narrative aspect of the Bible. And what it was sort of asking the question, to recognize more and more people were less and less connected with the church and the greater biblical narrative. And so having these 4 readings, you read an Old Testament reading, a Psalm reading, a New Testament reading, and then a Gospel. Having these 4 readings that kind of had a theme behind them, and then you jump to another one, was making less and less sense to people. In a world where people were less connected in the culture, and they weren't going to Sunday school and sort of having a bigger, teaching moment to them, people were getting more and more confused. So I like to use the analogy of, there's an 8-season television series on, Vikings or something like that, or some kind of action-packed season, and your friend invites you to come to start watching it, and you begin watching it in the middle of season 5, episode 6, and there are 50 different characters, and you have no idea how any of them interact together. And so you are just lost while you're trying to catch up and understand the story. So the Narrative Lectionary tries to take a more linear approach instead of jumping around. It progresses, story after story, and it starts in Genesis in the beginning, and then moves, slower into the Old Testament, into Exodus, and the story, and then the prophets. And it makes its way at the larger arc of what Scripture is doing. And it's a 4-year cycle that starts over again back in Genesis. It's not the same stories in Genesis. You don't read all of Genesis in 1 year, but it goes back, and then you go through that arc again, so it's telling a larger story. So what we're going to do is we're going to start in the fall season. We're going to be going through the Old Testament. Then in Advent and winter season, we're going to hear that Christmas story. And then in the early spring, we're going to hear, the story of Jesus and his ministry. And then in the later spring, we will hear the New Testament and the life of the early church and what that means. And then in the summer, that gives us a little bit of creativity of what we can do and put together. And then we'll start over the following year again and go through the larger story. So again, the hope is that as we shift to the Narrative Lectionary, that you and the congregation, that we're going to be building biblical fluency and understanding more and more how the story of God connects in this larger way into the life of the world, how God has been at work all of this time, and how God is working on us even today, connecting that story. We're also going to have a lot more focus, not jumping around, so simpler focus and practical tools, memorable ways in which we can join in God's story. Now, second thing, in addition to the shift to the narrative lectionary, we are going to be shifting to name tags. We're going to be bringing them back again. We've had them in the church before, but the idea is everybody wants to be known deep down inside, part of building community, part of being known. And so name tags, just recognizing people, new faces, seeing who they are. We're going to have them created for everyone. We'll print these out initially for everyone who's already a part of our worshiping community. We'll have a little magnetic board. There'll be magnets that you stick onto yourself, and you can get them from week to week. And then in addition to that, it's easy to reprint them. So if you lose yours, you want to change your name to like a nickname, something else, simple process, just to print one out takes 30 seconds. And in addition to that, if you see someone who doesn't have a name tag, just invite them over to the Welcome Center and say, hey, 30 seconds, we'd love to get to know your name. And it's a real easy process. And the other thing about what I like about it a lot is that the new way that we're going to roll this out is that we're not going to have like the people in our community who have name tags and the people who don't have something less than, in a kind of a two-tier system. We will have the same system, so everyone has the same looking name tag, everyone can be known, and it's a value that we can share. And now you may be thinking, I'm not big on wearing name tags. It's just not me. No one's going to make you, of course, but I'm going to challenge you to, go ahead and wear it anyway for the sake of your neighbor, so that they can know who you are and they won't feel out of place. I really would like you to try this out. Another opportunity we're going to be launching that's similar in that vein is about communities. September 4th and the subsequent first Wednesdays of the month, we're going to have the senior social in which people can get together and play games, have a meal together, get to know one another. We have recognized that our culture is experiencing an epidemic of loneliness. And so this will be just a chance for people to get together and, share life. And we're not really defining the term senior. It's not an age bracket per se, although we're certainly targeting, older people that might have more time during the day and things like that. But if you want to come and just share some community together, look for those monthly opportunities. We'll have an online way to sign up in our e-blast, and we'll have someone in our lobby area with a clipboard if you'd like to join in that situation. So other things that are happening in the week, I'm not going to go over all this, but I want to encourage you and be excited with you about what's coming up in the church here. Looking forward to sharing that with you. God's peace.